Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive. We take fire for granted today, but imagine a world without it, before humans could control it. What would fire have seemed like back then?
Oh, it must have been incredible, right? Both terrifying and totally fascinating. I mean, this force of nature that could destroy everything,
Hmm.
but also maybe had some use.
And that's what we're going to dig into today, the whole story of humans and fire. Not just the when did we first make it, but how did our relationship with fire change us as a species?
It's a huge story, and it starts way earlier than most people think.
Oh yeah, we're talking deep time here. A million years ago, we've got evidence from Wonderwork Cave in South Africa burned bones and plants, almost a million years old.
A million years. Think about that for a second. It blows my mind. But it also raises a really big question for researchers. Were these early humans, like Homo erectus, actually controlling fire, or just using what they found after wildfires?
Right, it's like we've got these pieces of a puzzle, but not the whole picture. Some experts think maybe they were scavenging embers, carefully approaching the aftermath of a wildfire and figuring out how to keep those embers alive.
That takes some serious ingenuity, though, right? Like to go from being scared of fire to understanding it enough to keep it going.
Total game changer. And imagine the excitement of that first time they managed to stretch fire, keep it burning for days, weeks.
Now that's what I call progress. But there's even more debate about when humans started actually making fire on purpose, not just using what they found.
Yeah, some researchers think intentional firemaking might go back even further, over a million years.
It's hard to prove, though. Finding evidence of early hearth is so rare, like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
Let's try to picture it for a second. You're an early human, you've seen these terrifying wildfires sweep through, but then they leave this incredible resource behind. Warmth, light, maybe even protection from predators.
It had to change their whole outlook, right? Fire wasn't just something to fear, it was a force to be reckoned with, and maybe even controlled.
Okay, so let's say they get more comfortable with fire, start using it regularly. What were some of those first benefits they discovered?
Well, the obvious ones. Warmth at night, light in the darkness. Especially as humans started migrating to colder places, that would have been huge.
And don't forget about protection. A circle of fire would keep those saber-toothed cats away a lot better than a flimsy spear, I bet.
You got that right. Plus, there's some evidence they might have even started smoking and drying food, a very early form of preservation.
Wow, clever. Way before refrigerators, huh? Okay, so we've got warmth, light, protection, even food preservation. But fire's impact goes even deeper, right? Like to our evolution as a species.
This is where it gets really fascinating. One anthropologist, Richard Wrangham, has this theory that cooking with fire was actually crucial for human brain development.
So like fire literally fueled our brain power. How does that work?
Well, think about it. Cooked food is easier to digest, it unlocks more calories. And guess what? Around the same time fire use became more common, Homo erectus started developing smaller teeth and stomachs.
Like they didn't need to chew as much. Makes sense.
Exactly. And all that energy that used to go towards digesting tough food could now be used for something else, growing bigger brains.
So fire literally helped make us smarter. That's incredible. But didn't fire also have a big social impact too?
Oh, absolutely. Imagine families gathered around a hearth, sharing a meal, telling stories. It creates a different kind of bond, doesn't it?
It's not just about survival anymore. It's about community, about strengthening those social connections. Fire literally brought people closer together.
You got it. And it's something we still feel today, right? There's a reason we love gathering around campfires, fireplaces. It taps into something primal, a need for connection that goes way back.
That's so true. It's amazing to think that something as simple as fire could have such a huge impact on our bodies, our minds, and even how we interact with each other.
And we're just scratching the surface here. Fire's story goes way beyond just practical uses. It becomes a symbol in myths, rituals, art, all across the globe.
That's for our next deep dive then. We'll explore how fire went from this essential tool to a powerful cultural icon, shaping our beliefs and stories for millennia. Stick around.
It's amazing, though, isn't it, how fire went from this thing to be scared of to like this centerpiece of human life.
Totally. And it makes me wonder about those early humans who first figured out how to make fire on purpose. Like, did they have any idea what they were unleashing?
Right. Did they realize how much it would change everything? It's like stepping over this huge threshold from using fire to creating it.
That first spark.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being there to witness that moment? What would it have felt like, do you think?
Oh, man. I think it would be a mix of awe and maybe even a little fear, like you've just created this powerful force, but it could also get out of control so easily.
That's like that double-edged sword thing, right?
Hmm.
Fire can give you so much warmth protection, but it can also be incredibly destructive.
Exactly. And that duality, that push and pull between the good and the bad, is something that shows up again and again in how humans think about fire, even today.
Yeah, like we're still drawn to fire, aren't we? Even now, with all our technology, there's something about a campfire or a fireplace that just draws people in.
It's primal almost, isn't it? Like it taps into something deep in our DNA, passed down from those ancestors who huddled around the fire for warmth and safety.
Like fire is woven into the fabric of what it means to be human, from those first flickering flames to the complex ways we use it today.
And it's not just about the practical stuff either. Fire becomes this powerful symbol in myths and stories all around the world.
Oh, yeah, like that Greek myth about Prometheus stealing fire from the gods and giving it to humans.
Right. It's a perfect example of how fire represents both knowledge and danger, this gift that comes with a huge responsibility.
And you see similar things in other cultures too, right? Like the rainbow serpent in Australian Aboriginal culture. It's this powerful creative force, but it can also be really destructive. It's often associated with fire.
It's fascinating how these ideas about fire show up in different cultures, even though they're separated by oceans and thousands of years. It's like fire speaks to something universal in the human experience.
Okay, so we've talked about early humans and myths, but let's fast forward to today. I mean, we've come a long way from scavenging embers, haven't we? We've got electricity, engines, all these ways to harness fire's power, but have we really tamed it?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? We might have mastered fire in some ways, but then you look at the wildfires we're seeing all over the world, fueled by climate change.
Yeah, it's a scary thought. It's like fire's reminding us that we're still part of nature, not above it, and that our actions have consequences.
Exactly. We can't forget that. Fire can be this incredible force for good, but it can also be incredibly destructive if we're not careful.
It's like we've got this responsibility, right? To learn from the past, understand fire's power, and figure out how to live with it in a way that's sustainable for both humans and the planet.
Well said. It's a challenge, but it's one we have to face head on. I mean, fire has shaped us in so many ways, our evolution, our cultures, our relationship with the world.
It's a story that's still unfolding, isn't it?
Hmm.
And as we move forward, we need to keep learning, keep adapting, and make sure that fire continues to be a force for good in the world.
It really makes you think, what would those early humans have felt? The ones who first figured out how to make fire, not just find it. That moment.
It would have been incredible, wouldn't it? To see that first spark, realize you'd created something so powerful.
I imagine it'd be like a mix of awe and maybe even a little fear, right? Like, wow, this is amazing, but what have we done?
Holy, this force of nature that could keep you warm, protect you,
Hmm.
but it could also destroy everything.
That duality, that good and bad side of fire, I think that's something humans have always wrestled with.
Even today, we're still drawn to fire, aren't we? We build fireplaces, gather around campfires.
Mm.
It's more than just about the heat.
It's like this deep-rooted connection, something passed down from our ancestors who relied on fire for survival.
All those stories shared around the firelight, those moments of connection. Fire brought people together, helped build communities. It's a big part of who we are.
And you see that reflected in how we use fire symbolically too, right? In myths, rituals, art. It's this powerful image that shows up all over the world.
It really is. Fire represents so many things: creation, destruction, knowledge, passion. It's like this force that's both essential and dangerous at the same time.
And that's something we have to remember even today as we face these challenges with climate change. Wildfires.
Fire has shaped us in so many ways, but it's also a reminder that we're part of nature, not separate from it.
We've come a long way in our understanding of fire, but we still have a lot to learn.
And a lot of responsibility, right? To use fire wisely, to respect its power, and make sure it continues to be a force for good in the world.
Absolutely. And it's been an amazing journey exploring this, hasn't it? From those first tentative encounters with fire to its impact on everything, from our evolution to our culture.
Fire's story is our story. It's one that's still unfolding. So as we wrap up this deep dive, we'll leave you with this question. What role will fire play in the chapters yet to come? What will its legacy be? Thanks for joining us.